Last night we had a major public hearing, and I'm pretty sure it was the biggest public hearing that Cochrane's ever had. There were literally hundreds of people in attendance. The council chambers were packed full. The front foyer, if you know the ranch house, that's the area over by the entrance to the stage. There were chairs out there. They were full. There was an extra event space behind council chambers where we had to set up a speaker and a screen for more people to pile in. And what the hundreds of people were there in attendance for was this issue of what's going on with our rec center. For those of you who don't know, there is a proposal that has come forwards very quickly, and it was attempted to be pushed to a decision very quickly to hand over operations of the Cochrane Rec Center over to the Calgary-based YMCA, leaving the Cochrane community with little to no control over the whole facility. And last night, after listening to everybody in the community and seeing the way that our mayor and our administration handled the situation and replied to everybody, and really just the way the whole thing's been unfolding, I just hit a breaking point last night, and I have decided that there needs to be a leadership change in Cochrane. I went home last night and stayed up late talking to my wife about this situation, and this is something I've been thinking about for a few months now, and this is just the straw that broke the camel's back for me. And this morning I woke up and I decided that I'm going to run for mayor in Cochrane. I've been on council for 12 years, well, going on 12 years, and with the way things have happened recently, I have decided there's just no way that I can stay on as a part-time councillor under the status quo, and either I need to be part of making a major change or I'm done. And so I'm here to tell you guys a bit about my position on the YMCA situation with our rec center. And beyond that, I'm going to talk about broader issues and how it relates to the bigger picture in Cochrane and what I think needs to change and how I think I can do things differently for our community. And I'm coming to you with this is a very impromptu video. I have no campaign planned. I'm not an officially nominated candidate, so I have to go through this whole process of getting nominated. I have to put together a website and campaign materials and all that. But this is an emergent decision, so I'm just coming to you with the video. So let's talk about the YMCA. So the details, as we know it, and has been confirmed in the public, is that we have this rec center. It is extremely valuable. Our own administration estimates that this thing is worth between $250 and $300 million, and it's paid in full. So there's no debt outstanding on the facility. And we have decided, well, no, we have not decided. What has been proposed is that we give operational control of this facility over to the Calgary-based YMCA, and in return, the YMCA will give us nothing. And that's not an exaggeration. There was a fulsome debate about this, or not a debate, a public hearing last night about all these details. And so what's being promised in return is just that YMCA will operate it. What is being verbally stated over and over by our mayor and our administration is that this is going to be generating cost savings, it's going to have more efficiency, et cetera, et cetera. But when you get into the details of the contract, there is literally no guarantee. There's not even a statement of a goal that this thing is going to be put together for cost savings measures, or there's going to be a surplus or a profit generated. That's not in the deal. What is in the deal is that the YMCA would be given full operational control of the facility, and then contrary to the notion of a surplus, if there's a shortfall, the town of Cochrane is going to continue to be fully on the hook for that shortfall, while we have no control over the budget. And if and when there is a profit or surplus generated, it will be up to the YMCA how to deal with that funds after the commitments of the town of Cochrane's facility are made. But as part of those commitments, there will be an administrative fee, which we do not know the details of. But that administrative fee will be transferred out of Cochrane and into the broader YMCA, into the whole organization. So the facility is worth $250 million. We're talking about giving operational control of it away in return for no guarantees, for nothing. And while we have no opportunity to participate in any potential upside, should there be a profit or a surplus, we are expected to maintain all of the downside risk. And while this is happening, not only is it a bad financial deal, our community members who were there last night speaking are really quite worried that they are going to lose control of our community facility. The curlers are outraged that they're going to be losing their lounge, which is going to threaten their viability of having bonspiels. And as was mentioned many times last night, curling is primarily a social sport, and it's very important to the club that they have the lounge. Cochrane's extremely successful swim team, the Water Ninjas, who were literally national champions, they've been made to feel that they will be replaced by an inferior, less competitive, and less organized YMCA team called the Guardians. So they'll cease to exist. There's no guarantees about ice time for hockey or access to any of the other facilities. That's all subject to future negotiation with the YMCA, and it won't be decided by the town. And there's nothing in this current contract that guarantees access. We are verbally promised that nothing will change, but at the same time, we're told it's not going to be in writing in the contract. You're just going to have to trust us, and we'll sort it out later. And in addition to that, we're told, well, if you don't like it, you can just get out of the deal with a 90-day cancellation period. But it's not quite that simple, because if we don't like the deal, this 90-day cancellation period is not going to be that easy to execute. Firstly, we are going to have to get Rocky View, our partner in the facility, to agree with us to cancel, which might be difficult because Rocky View is not on the hook financially for the operations of this thing. So Rocky View would have veto power as to whether or not we could change the operational agreement at a later date, while Cochrane has to maintain all of the financial liability should there be a shortfall. But on top of that, this 90-day cancellation period would be very problematic because it would be a huge upset to all the programming, the facility management, and once the Y gets in there and takes control of everything and replaces all of the town's programs and teams, it will be replaced by programs and training that the YMCA owns. It'll be their intellectual property that we will not have control over. So it will not be as simple as just canceling this thing and say, all right, let's go back to the normal. Once we leave the current normal, I think we will probably never go back to the current normal. And so if we're going to move forward with this, we need to make sure it's a darn good deal. And currently, it is a terrible deal. The only reason that this deal makes any sense, according to the people who are promoting it, is for its financial benefits. But when you get into the details of the contract, there are zero guaranteed financial benefits. And I am not exaggerating that. There are no financial benefits in this contract. All of the alleged financial benefits are only a verbal commitment. And when you deal with 25 to 50-year contracts, a verbal commitment, I'm sorry, does not cut it. It needs to be in writing. And so myself and hundreds of people at the public hearing last night, as well as many other councillors, have expressed their opposition to this whole proposal. But this deal and this proposal is not the only reason that I've decided, and I feel very strongly, that Cochrane is in need of a serious leadership change. This is just honestly the straw that broke the camel's back. Because I don't so much have a problem with the proposal itself as I do the process in which we got here. For those of you who may have been following this whole process very quickly, they know, and community members will tell you the same thing, that this thing presumably came almost out of nowhere, and then it was expected to be voted on and decided within a matter of 1 to 2 weeks, boom, with no public hearing or public consultation. And that myself and several other members of council actually had to debate quite fervently in order to get a public hearing to happen in the first place. And so we finally got the public hearing to happen, and then everybody's there expressing all of their concerns, and everybody feels that this whole thing absolutely came out of nowhere. But what happened is the council was made aware of the existence of this thing 18 months ago. And at that time, it was always said, oh, there'll be more details, it'll go public, there'll be more details, there'll be more conversation, don't worry, there's a plan coming. On top of that, it was my understanding that when this did come forward and become a topic of public conversation, that this was going to be happening as a broader conversation, as a strategy to get our hands on a second rec center. More ice, more gyms, more pools, etc. And so we were going to look at our operating model and at the same time come up with a plan to expand our recreation capacity in Cochrane. That is not what has happened. All that has happened that has come forward is a deal that doesn't make any sense for Cochrane. There's no clear justification as to why to do it, and there's no actual detailed plan of what we would do in the event of needing a second facility yet. And this way that things are done in council is a growing trend of how I think our government should not be operated and what needs to change. And a great example of what I'm talking about is this whole thing. I felt this whole idea did not originate from your elected council representatives. This came from the top of leadership where they said, well, this is what we should do. And so it moved forward. And that's really what drives everything at the town of Cochrane these days. And a great example of this is the Lions Event Center and the Cochrane Rodeo Grounds. Earlier this year, the Cochrane Lions came forward talking about something that they have been talking to the community about for quite a while. They want a guarantee that they're going to be able to operate the Lions Event Center and the rodeo ground for a long period of time. And the reason they want to do that is because they want to start actively planning and fundraising to improve the facility. Right now, things are not as good as they should be at the event center and the rodeo grounds, and the Lions know that. They want to do better. And they've done a fantastic job running what I think is the best event in all of Cochrane while they've been in existence. And when this came forward to council that they want a long-term agreement so that they can step up their game and improve things, There was basically unanimous consent among councillors, verbally expressed in public in the council meeting, said, "Yeah, this is a great idea. Let's empower our Cochrane Lions. Let's move forward with this great community initiative." But instead, our administration pushed back and debated with us in public and said it can't be done. And I pointed out, you have 9 months to do this deal. They said, well, it can't be done in 9 months. This is way too complicated. This is way too difficult. And it was just roadblock, roadblock, roadblock. And we're told that it's impossible to negotiate a deal with the Cochrane Lions for something that is already happening very well. We just want to lock it in for a longer period of time. We're told that's impossible. Now look at this. Now look at this with the YMCA. We're looking at a major operational change with no details sorted out, no guarantees for Cochrane. It's not a continuation of an existing program. It's a complete change in the program. And we're told that can happen, boom, instantly. As soon as the thing goes public, it's going to get approved. And so the hypocrisy between these two issues is terrible. And it's not just this. Council, I feel, their elected council gets sandbagged all the time. Another great example is the backyard hen program that Councillor Patrick Wilson just proposed. So Patrick Wilson wanted to put forward a policy where people who want to have hens in their backyards, they can have eggs, could do so. It was not his idea. He brought this forward because some community members asked him to bring it forward. And now I'm not going to get into the details of whether or not you support chickens in Cochrane. I want to talk about the process, because when our administration came back with a community backed initiative, which a council member who's elected said, I want to explore this further. They came back and said this would be impossible because it will take 500 hours, up to 500 hours of staff time. I'm not exaggerating. And now you may be wondering, how could you spend 500 hours on that? Well, I'm wondering the same thing, because one of the big roadblocks to all this is there needs to be a training program to teach people how to manage hens in a cleanly manner. But as was identified in that initial presentation, there's already a program in existence to teach people how to do this. And there's also been a couple dozen different municipalities in Alberta who've already done this. So literally all we need to do is look at what these other municipalities are doing, look at the training program they're already using, it fully exists, and figure out how to implement that here in Cochrane and let a few families try it. There's no way that's 500 hours of work. Like, get real. So either one of two things is happening in that particular instance. Again, this isn't about the chickens. This is about the process. Either our administration actually believes something like this should take 500 hours, which is a crazy amount of time, and it reveals a massive inefficiency in our municipal government. Or, worse, they're just telling us that, and this is probably the more likely scenario, they're just telling us it's going to take 500 hours because they don't really want to move forward with it. So they're sandbagging council. They're sandbagged Councillor Wilson. And then there's other things where this ideology where council shouldn't be in charge has crept into our decision making. And when I say council's not in charge, that means the community's not in charge, because we're the ones who report to you guys. So just 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the community grants program in Cochrane, where we're looking at funding the events like barbecues and parades and community associations. There's a grant program for all that. Our administration put forward that should not be something that council controls, because you don't want to politicize it. The suggestion was that council is incapable of deciding which community groups should be backed and which community events should happen, because it's a political decision, and our administration is better to decide that. Well, I fundamentally disagree. I believe in representative democracy, and I know that all the people I work with on council are in it primarily because they want to serve the public's interests. And that's why people run in the first place. And we also all know that if we don't serve the public interest, we're all going to lose our jobs. And so the mechanism by which the community has democracy is through council. And so council needs to be in control. And I've given you 3 examples here where just recently there has been a gross a revelation that the current philosophy of the town of Cochrane is that the leadership should make all the decision, and council, in my view, is treated as an obstacle. And by treating council as an obstacle, you're treating the public as an obstacle. And so this YMCA thing is, this just takes the cake. And like I said, I've hit my limit. We were told for 18 months that there was going to be more details coming. We're going to have an RFP process. It'll be fully transparent. Well, there's not a whole lot of transparency, and the only thing that is transparent is there's nothing to gain for Cochrane in this whole deal. Now going back to just the bigger picture about this whole thing and why I think we need a change in leadership, I want to say that in this group that is on council now we've been together for 8 years. We all got reelected. Like 100% of us got reelected in the last election, and that's because I think the community, as well as myself, feel that in the first term things were very successful. I thought our current mayor and our current government did a great job. We broke ground on a number of infrastructure projects. There was a message brought forward by the community loud and clear. Fix traffic. Well, now your complaint in the community is that there's too much construction stuff happening to traffic, which is, by the way, the solution, not the problem. And then, we broke ground on the new RCMP station, Protective Services building. Taxes were kept completely under control. There were essentially no new developments approved in the last council because there has been a message coming from the people of Cochrane. They want to slow down growth. And so by every one of the major top important issues in our council, I thought the first term, our current mayor and government did a fantastic job. Great. And then something happened after our mayor got acclaimed and we got a new CAO, and just bit by bit, I just think that the government has just lost touch with the people of this community. For me, the first big wake-up call that I had I attended the mayor's State of Cochrane speech. It was either 2 or 3 years ago, and he gave this speech about how we're building Cochrane into a city of 100,000 people, and that we needed $1 billion of infrastructure. And he was saying it was a challenge. We're going to figure out how to build this $1 billion of infrastructure. And as I sat there listening, it dawned on me at that point that that is not what the people of this community support. I know the Cochrane residents are not looking forward to the day that we are 100,000 people, nor do they want to have to figure out how to pay for $1 billion of infrastructure for all those people to move here. And so you can go back, you can look through social media feeds and rants and raves, and I did an open letter to the public about all that back then. And since then, I have just slowly, my confidence in everything we're doing has just been eroded. And then the next major thing that happened, it was honestly the biggest blunder that I have ever experienced in municipal government, bigger than this YMCA thing, was this witch hunt against Councillor Marnie Fedayko. Now, a lot of the public doesn't even know about this stuff because it has all happened behind closed doors. It's all been totally lip sealed because it's a legal battle. And I'm not, and the council's been made aware that we are not allowed to talk about it. And should we talk about it, there can be personal legal consequences for our involvement in the conversation. And by the way, when we're talking about legal consequences, we're talking about against the town of Cochrane, which has a massive legal budget, which Councillor Marnie Fedayko herself has been dealing with for 2 years. A great big legal budget she's up against. What I can say is partway through that process, I said, this is ridiculous. We are tearing our council apart, and I refuse to participate in this process any further. There is an email out there of me informing my colleagues that I was removing myself from the process. And despite the fact that I got dragged into a few more meetings with investigations and legal meetings that I had to attend, I removed myself from that process. But it went on. What's publicly available knowledge is that there was an investigation conducted against Marty, and the first investigation came up dry. There were no substantiated claims against Councillor Fedayko. But there were still repercussions levied against her, despite the fact that this process was followed, and the process did not suggest that Marnie should be punished. And so then after that happened, there was a second investigation. And lo and behold, the second investigation found that Councillor Fedayko had committed some problems. And so then council's hands were tied, and it was communicated to council. We had no choice. Council had no choice but to do something against Councillor Fedayko. But after that, it went on. The witch hunt continued. I think it was this year or late last year, there was this meeting where, in just like the pettiest of fashion, Marnie's name was dragged through the mud to remove her deputy mayor duties because we just couldn't possibly have Marnie representing us as deputy mayor. And the people who were delivering this whole thing and driving this whole thing, they were delivering the speech with smiles on their faces, pretending this was all normal. It wasn't normal. This is what the Trump people would call lawfare in here in Cochrane. And I don't want to dwell too much on this whole thing, but I am bringing it up because at that point, I feel that point is when this current government, under our current leadership, just became completely divided, and we have become completely dysfunctional. Council is no longer in the driver's seat. Our most important strategic priorities, which pretty much everybody on council does want to see come to fruition, important financial topics, important planning topics, things with recreation, all these things we want to have done. Over the last 4 years, we've achieved almost none of them. And if you look at our agendas, now we're scrambling to get a whole bunch of stuff done before the election with improper details and improper planning. That's why we're seeing incomplete plans from the YMCA that, there's an agreement before us, but there's no plan on how it's actually going to benefit Cochrane. And there's more stuff coming. We're scrambling to make these decisions to try and finish up things before the next election. And another thing I want to talk about before I wrap this up, I've been talking for a long time here. Thank you for enduring my rant if you've made it this far. But I do not believe in governing through political grandstanding. If you've been following me, or if you're one of my friends in the community who knows how I've done things politically, in my first term in council, honestly, I grandstanded quite a bit. And as I matured as a politician and got a little bit older and became more involved in government, I realized, that's not a very effective way to change things. When you grandstand and give speeches, it actually usually has the opposite effect of what you're intending. You just make a bunch of enemies. You don't advance your strategic objectives. You just tick everybody off. And, so with that in mind, I also want to be crystal clear that these things that I'm talking about, in private, professional, diplomatic conversations with our existing leadership of the town of Cochrane, I have suggested that there needs to be major changes made. And not just once. I've brought this up a number of times. And each time that I have brought it up, I have been promised that things are going to change, stuff's going to happen, or I'd push a little harder and say, well, things haven't changed yet. So then I would be told, well, Morgan, you're wrong, and things are actually going great in Cochrane. Or they'd say, maybe things aren't great, but it's council's fault. Council's the reason that this isn't happening. But I've already explained to you that the way I see it, I think council's been made to feel that they're not in the driver's seat, that our council is not the people who are responsible for governing things. And because when council's not in the driver's seat, that means the public is not in the driver's seat, because again, it's about representative democracy. So, like I said, I have hit a breaking point. It's go big or go home for me. I am making a change in this community as mayor, or I'm done, and that'll be the end of it, because I can't be part of what's going on anymore. I need to see a change, and I also want to say that I do not put this on my other fellow councillors. We have a lot of great council members, and I feel that they have not been given the opportunity to impact the change, and we've been divided. And I just want to be crystal clear, I do not blame our councillors for what has happened here in Cochrane. There's a lot of great people who are serving on council right now. And so, like I said, I'm not an official candidate. This is an impromptu rant that I just had to get off my chest today. Like, I had to let everybody know how I'm feeling about things and what I'm going to be doing. So there's going to be in the weeks and months to come, I'm going to officially file my nomination papers, do a criminal record check, which, by the way, I'm not a criminal, so I'll pass that. But I have to do that in order to actually campaign. Then I'll launch an official campaign, and you'll hear all about what I stand for and the positive things that I want to do for Cochrane. But suffice it to say, my first and number one priority, should I be elected mayor, is going to be providing better government for our residents. And better government looks like increased transparency. We shouldn't have major issues like the YMCA being quietly discussed for this long, and then the public not be given an opportunity to comment on it afterwards. If it has to remain confidential, there needs to be an adequate opportunity for the public to engage at some point. So transparency is up there. I also want to put our council in the driver's seat. I don't plan on running for mayor and saying, I'm going to be Mr. Morgan Nagel, the mayor, and I'm going to make all the decisions. Quite the opposite. I plan on being a facilitator for what the elected council wants to do. And then our administration is going to help deliver what council as a whole wants to do. And so transparency, council representation with your elected officials in charge. And we just need to be also setting some clear goals on what needs to be achieved, and there needs to be accountability. Having things come forward that are not detailed cannot be accepted. So the three pieces to my commitment to better government: transparency, putting council in charge, and clear goal setting and deliverables for our community. So everybody, I appreciate anybody who's made it this far. Thank you. I look forward to engaging with you all further on this topic and telling you all about what I hope to do for Cochrane. Everybody, let's hope that this rec center deal doesn't get approved, because it is a terrible deal. All right, talk to you soon.